Hey, this is Tony Castronovo. If you want to learn how to use your small axe to build an empire, you should be listening to the Small Axe podcast with my great friend Nico.
Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Axe Podcast. I want to show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys. Okay, Small Axe community, this is Nico, and I'm hanging out today with Tony Castronovo. Now, this guy was on my podcast maybe a year or so or more ago. I don't even know, but I'm excited to get him back on. I'm excited to hear, a catch up of what he's done for the remainder of 2022. I'm really excited to hear about what he has planned for 2023. And without further ado, let's get him on. Tony, what's up, my man?
Hey, Nico. Hey. Yes, it was actually in 2021. So it's been a little while. It's great to be back on.
Man, that long ago, huh? This is wild. Well, that's a good thing. That means that our relationship has been going on for quite a long time. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see the next 10 years of our relationship continue. So thank you for being a good friend.
You bet.
All right. So, Tony, now I went very high level. I didn't share anything about your background or bio. Maybe you can kind of take a minute or so to go over like what you were doing prior, what you're doing now, where you came from, and how your journey began, and just take us along a little ride.
You bet. You bet. So, Tony Castronovo, I am based in Houston, Texas. 25 years in management consulting. For about 7 of those years, I was running a side gig in real estate. And in 2021, I actually decided to go full time into real estate. So I guess I'm going on about 15 months of being without a W-2. So that's a big pat on my back, because last year was all about just setting the foundation and trying to figure this whole thing out. What would it be like to wake up every day and be self-driven and have to fish for my paycheck every day, every week. So that was 2022. I guess a little bit unpacking on the real estate front. Back in 2014, I started in single family and started doing what probably a lot of folks do. You buy a distressed home, you fix it up, maybe you rent it out. And over time, I had a small portfolio of homes. They were all within 30 minutes. I was self-managing. And then I tried to think about how can I keep growing and grow a lot faster. And naturally, multifamily came up, and I decided to go all in on multifamily in 2018. And I sold all my homes and bought my first apartment complex. We closed on my birthday, actually, in 2018.
Man, that is awesome. Congratulations. And congratulations on the 15 months of leaving. How has that been?
It's been good. I mean, it hasn't all been good, but the good is that I did it. And leaving, for some people, maybe that's the hard part. For me, leaving was not that hard, but you kind of go through these phases where you start out excited as heck. You're in the honeymoon phase. You're like, I can't believe I just did this. I can do anything I want. I can wake up when I want. I can work as many hours as I want. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. And then reality starts to kind of set in. And once reality sets in, you start realizing that, hey, I got a mountain of work to do, and it's me. And I don't have this big company behind me. I could start hiring people. I could start bringing on VAs and things like that. But all that takes a little bit of time to kind of work through. And then you start kind of going through, well, if I'm one guy, where can I focus to add the most value? And, I gotta put meals on the table, and I gotta, provide for my family. But I have all this other stuff that I've been trying to do as my side gig, and now it's my full-time gig. How do I do it in the right way so that, eventually there's some foundation to build on, and maybe it's not so hard as the first year or two. So overall, though, Nico, it's been really good. I've gone through those cycles like every entrepreneur, and had kind of those doubts and limiting beliefs, but you wake up and you keep on knocking through stuff, and you get coaches, because that is something that I realized this year. You can't do it all on your own.
Hmm.
You're gonna have those low points, and it's very easy to just say, you know what, I'm not gonna do that, or I'm gonna take this other path that's a little easier. And having a coach keeps you accountable. And I've been blessed by having a number of coaches in my life. And so much I believe in this that I started my own coaching business earlier this year.
Yeah, Tony, I really want to talk about that as well, because I think that's going to be something of value to the listeners. I just want to stay here for one more minute. Everybody that I talk to has the same thought post leaving their W 2, or the same story, that there are ups and downs, there are challenges, and it's not necessarily for everybody, right? So those points typically come about when I talk to somebody who's left their W 2. And this is just, and I'm intentionally saying this for those people out there that are, so adamant about leaving their W 2. It's not necessarily for everybody, not that it's bad, because I'm going to get there, and I can't wait as well. But there are ups and downs. It's not the solution to everything, right?
It's very true. So my tagline on my coaching business is that I empower entrepreneurs to lead an intentional life by design. And I focus on entrepreneurs, but that's a mindset. It doesn't mean that you can't be an entrepreneur and work a W-2 job. If you love your job, but you also love real estate or any other business of your own, wonderful, you can do them both. The goal is not necessarily just to quit one thing and go all in on the other. But if that is for you, then that's where coaching can really help, because jumping and making that big decision, it does take some courage, and it's scary. And then, once you do jump, there's this whole sort of life cycle that you got to work through. And it is not all just, peaches and cream on day one.
I can imagine. It's like you are now in charge of everything, right? So very interesting. Now, let's talk a little bit about your coaching business. Is it related to this entrepreneurial jump that we're talking about from the W 2 to freedom?
It is. So the business, and we can put this in the show notes, but it's called Grit to Growth. And Grit to Growth was really kind of inspired by everything that I've gone through as an entrepreneur who for years wanted to make that jump. I did enjoy my management consulting career for many years, but there became a point where, as I'm building my side business, it just became more and more my passion. And I started directing more time to it. And I think my skill set just kind of leaned into that more. And so I realized that this is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I could bring some value to that process. So I enrolled myself into a certified coaching program where I go through training. I have a lot of what I call peer coaching and peer clients. And it's a very immersive program to become a coach. And I've basically been working through that since about July of last year, and should get certified here in the next month or two. But I didn't want to wait to start a business, because I've been coaching all along through this process. So I started the business, I guess, sometime in the fourth quarter, and off and running. I mean, here we are.
That's great, man. I'm really excited for that. And I love the name Grit to Growth. Recently I've been thinking a lot about grit, and that word in particular has really resonated with me, in the sense that I've come to realize that perseverance and grit will will lead to success as long as you stick with it, right? So it's not easy, and people tend to give up, and sometimes we give up right at the last moment when we're about to succeed. And having grit is extremely important. What are your feelings of grit, or what is your definition of it?
It's kind of funny that I got coaching on the name of my business because I struggled with what should I call my business. And I had all these different words and all these different phrases, and it was really important to me to get it right because I knew that there was something about growth where I think once you make that jump and you get sort of exposed a little bit, you don't have this big company around you or organization that's there to kind of lean on, you're going to grow so much faster. I mean, 2022 was a phenomenal growth year for myself. And I've seen so many people, so many friends and colleagues that are in our space that have grown tremendously. And that is inspirational to me. So I wanted that to be part of the name. The grit side, I will be honest, I was like, am I alienating people with that? Like, am I telling people that if you don't work hard, that means you're not going to succeed? Or is it kind of a guy thing, like grit, we're in the grit, we're doing it. And am I alienating women, let's say? I
Mhm.
really thought pretty hard about the name. But at the end of the day, that is a characteristic. And I've seen it, whether it's, man, woman, anybody that's in this space that has shown that they can persevere, as you said, they have this. It's truly a characteristic. And I may not be the best coach for everybody, but I'm the best coach for somebody with grit that's looking to grow and just loves to be an entrepreneur and all the things that come with that, good, bad, and indifferent.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, and one of the main reasons I was thinking about this word in particular, grit, was I was listening to Grant Cardone again. So occasionally I'll pick up his. So I have all his books on audio, and occasionally I'll just listen to it again, re-listen. And he was talking about the fact that you never fail if you don't stop. So if you continue, no matter how many times you get knocked down, you continue, you'll never truly fail, because you only fail when you stop. And that's the only failure, because you stopped. You have never failed if you keep trying. And he talks about, failure, and how many, experiments gone wrong with just in history, in our, it was it Brent Franklin, I believe, with the light bulb. So many things have gone so wrong, but after thousands of tries, and even with, just different icons of our history, even with so many tries, they don't see them as failures, even though there's thousands of perceived failures, right? And the only actual failure happens when we stop. So grit comes to mind because that means you're pushing through that, and you're just going to keep going until you hit that success.
Absolutely. Something that I don't think we do enough of is celebrating our accomplishments. Last year I had, I guess, 11 goals, 10 or 11 goals. I achieved all but two. But I went back and I documented, really what were the accomplishments. I did things in 2022 that were never on my goal plan. I had a lot of accomplishments that I could have looked back and said, man, I failed. I didn't hit those two goals. And they were big goals. But I had to stretch myself. I had to put something out there. But I could have looked at that as a failure. But man, I'm telling you, when I went through my 2023 planning process, I stepped back and I looked at all the things that I accomplished in 2022. I started really challenging myself to look at what are the lessons that came out of 2022. Because if something doesn't necessarily meet your goal, there's got to be a lesson in there somewhere. Something that maybe you could have done differently to had a different outcome. And that's how we improve, right? So taking that into the new year, before I laid out my goals, I really wanted to look back and celebrate, but also learn from it.
Yeah. I have found my biggest leaps forward have been from, introspection and self-reflection and seeing what I could have done. Never, being harsh on myself, but just saying, oh, okay, this is where I could have done better. Identifying points that I could have achieved more on. And I think that many people are afraid of kind of looking inward and looking at their faults.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can just close the door and reflect and, put everything down on paper if you like, or you can, share it with others that might be able to learn something from what you just experienced. But either way, I mean, that's up to you. Yeah, but I do think it's an important part of growth.
Yep. Agreed. Hey Tony, what how many deals did you do this in 2022?
Uh, Multifamily deals, I did three, four if you count one that I closed late in 2021. It was December close, but I'll just say three multifamily deals. I also purchased my first short-term rental.
Mm.
I never really intended to get into the short-term rental business. It was frankly a means to an end. One of my goals last year was to purchase a home in the mountains, Colorado, Utah. We landed
Mm.
on Utah. The short-term rental business was really just how do we justify having a second home that we don't live in most of the year because we live in Texas. So we entered into the short-term rental business and, it's been okay, but I'm not going to tell you it's been phenomenal. I think we missed that wave a little bit. We can unpack that. But and then we did one flip as well. So that also was a means to an end. I'm not in the flipping business. That was purely to help my son purchase a car over the summer. We spent the summer working together, and that was how I was going to help him to reach his goal.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I forgot about that. And I remember a story you telling me you had like your family with you on one of your first acquisitions and they were all swinging hammers. And I think that this your mindset is excellent, right? So forget about the ROI on that Airbnb, right? I know that you were interested in traveling. I remember you took some trips to Colorado, Utah, and you landed on Utah. Who cares? You know, of whether or not it was the most ideal investment, right? But monetarily, right? From an ROI perspective, but from a perspective of your family and traveling and lifestyle, I mean, that's where it really starts making sense.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that sometimes if you don't go down a path a little bit, you don't know there's this whole world out there. And even though if you ask my wife, she would say that I jumped the gun because if I put something on my goal plan, it's going to get done. And when she and I talked about getting a house in the mountains somewhere, I think she was thinking like 5 to 10 year plan,
Mm.
not 5 to 10 month plan. But it's one of those things that okay, so now we have this property out in Utah. It launched us into a business called Novo Vacation Villas. And right now it's one property. We can easily add other properties to it if we want to, and we see this as a real business. But it kind of got us on the map to learn the short-term rental business. And for anybody that's never purchased a short-term rental, it's not real estate. This is the hospitality industry.
Mhm.
And it is something that I think my wife is really good at and I'm okay at, and I'm learning it. But it's something new that we never really thought about. And so I'm applauding that we took a chance. But the other big aspect is so it forced me to get out there more because now we own this place.
Mm.
I think I was out there in March, in May, in June, July, September, and December.
Wow.
And Nico, when I'm in Park City, Utah, I'm way more athletic. I'm out there. I'm enjoying nature. I'm hiking. I'm skiing. I'm running, doing all this stuff. And that's what it's about. And so it's kind of like one goal is driving another goal, sort of stacking. And that's a goal of mine this year is whether somebody thinks this is big, small, whatever, for me, 3 million steps. I I run a lot of races, a lot of
Mhm.
marathons, but I have a lot of sedentary days too because we just work a lot as entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
and I need to get better. I want to reach 3 million steps this year, which for me, I think I capped out around 2.2 million in 2022. So it's about a 34% increase in my steps.
That's great that you have a reference. I was going to ask you, how do you know is 3 million a good number? But so now I get it. You have a reference. Do you use like an app or something, or the Apple Watch? What do you use?
Yeah, I do use Apple Health. I also have a Garmin that tracks all that as well. So yeah, it's I could track miles and all my years of running marathons, which I am running the Houston Marathon in 2 weeks. It'll be my
Awesome.
26th marathon.
Oh my God. 26 marathon. That's
But
wild.
I'm not about tracking miles. I believe more in sort of holistic fitness, and I just need to get off my butt more consistently,
Hmm.
and the nature aspect. I think there's something to be said about getting out there and just exploring, just Earth.
Oh man. I feel that, man. I am so into just being in the woods, getting lost somewhere. I really like getting out there. I love mountains, I love oceans, I love just being in nature itself. That they have this thing in here in Brooklyn now in New York where they have like grounding stations where people put like dirt in their house or in these neighborhoods where people can put their feet in, and because it's so important to be in touch with nature, that there's a some sort of static electricity effect of grounding that is beneficial to humans. And just being in nature, getting it, where not everything is square and cookie cutter, with this weird shapes and natural sounds and smells. It's just, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an opportunity to kind of reset. When we went out in September, I was out there for 18 days. And this was a bit of a pilot of mine. It was a pilot to live what I preach. So my tagline being intentional life by design, right? I wanted to live my own intentional life by design. And so I forced myself to go out there, not on a vacation, but to plant myself and pilot. What would it be like to live out the life that I have as my vision? And my steps are one of the highest that I've had all year because I was out there hiking. I was taking my dog for a walk or a run, and we're just exploring, and I was doing all that kind of, before and after a work day. And so for me, my ideal sort of vision for how I would live my life if I could totally design it would be I wake up at, let's just say, 7 a.m. and I take my dog out for a run, maybe a hike, bring her back, get on some coaching calls, maybe some asset management calls for some of the properties that I'm involved in, maybe some productive work. And by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, wrap it up, take my wife, my dog, we go out, we go somewhere new, explore, hike, get in a great workout, maybe cap it off with a glass of wine or a couple beers, and start it all over again. And
Beautiful.
that's what I lived for 18 days.
Awesome. How did you feel?
That was amazing. And
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure I could do it because, Nico, you gotta have boundaries, right? Just because that is the life that I just designed for myself. The rest of the world, they don't care about that.
Hmm.
Maybe, a partner would say, "Oh, look, we're meeting at 4:30 p.m." And I'd be like, "Well, I could attend the meeting. Maybe I should be at the meeting, but then I got this whole, Tony's life by design.
Hmm.
What do I do?" And this is where you got to have some boundaries and, also some flexibility, but it's up to you to design it.
You know what, Tony? I really like that word boundary, because, and especially for those that are taking the plunge from W 2 into straight entrepreneurship on their own. because, and you mentioned it earlier on as well, it's like when you start waking up a little later every day, if we don't have like a structure for us and have boundaries set, whether, a lot of times we rely on our companies to do that for us and set those boundaries. You need to be here at this time, you need to be dressed as such, you need to have X personality, you need to have X energy, which kind of sets the tone for how we live our life. But now, when we're essentially free from that W-2, you need to reset boundaries, you need to reset a structure and create it and be strict with it.
Yeah. You know, there were many months that I would have guilt
Hmm.
because my normal wake up time is probably around 7 o'clock, which many years I would get up at 5 a.m. I still get up at 4 a.m. on weekends to go out for runs, but I choose to wake up around that time because I want 7 hours of sleep every night. And by the time I kind of wrap up my day and unwind, sit down with my wife for a little while, I might not get to bed until midnight. And that's just my body clock. And I'm not going to feel guilty over that. I get my 7 hours of sleep, and that's kind of the cadence that I'm on. But who's to say that waking up at 5 a.m. is any better, or going to bed at 9 p.m. is any better?
Hmm.
You know, so you got to do what works for you.
I love it, man. Yeah, great points. Now, Tony, I just kind of want to ask a personal question, not too personal, but because I'm in a similar situation where I now have a dog for 2 months. I want to take him running with me. Talk a little bit about your dog. What kind of a dog do you have? You mentioned it was a she. How old is she? And do you often run with her?
So she is what we call a schnocker, which is fun to say. That's a combo of a schnauzer and a cocker spaniel.
Hmm.
She's kind of a medium-sized dog. Most people wouldn't put her in the elite running category of dogs, but she doesn't know that. So she is up and at 'em. If she sees that I'm putting my running clothes on, it doesn't matter what time. On a Saturday, if I'm up at 4 a.m., she's ready to go for a run. But I don't always take her because my wife also started running. She's got a goal this year to run a half marathon. So we had to split our time with Willow, our dog. So I get Monday through Wednesday, and she gets Thursday through Sunday
Cool.
because we don't want Willow to have more than 20 miles a week. That
Oh,
we're kind of getting up to that point, and we want to be careful and not to overexert her. She's a 2-year-old dog. I guess she's pretty much done growing from that capacity, but we just want to be careful and not overexert her.
that's awesome. Do you use some sort of special leash?
My wife does. My wife's got lots of different setups, but for me, I like my standard old regular whatever leash, but I do hold it in a certain way, and we don't need to get too technical here, but basically the way I hold it is I have to have control that if I anticipate she's going to dart in front of me, which she has done in the past, I can quickly feel it and respond to it and signal her not to do it. Otherwise, it's not going to end well for anybody.
Hmm.
But I think part of the fun of running with a dog is I will admit we have chased a squirrel or two, and that's okay because she loves it, and I'm just having fun.
Awesome. Cool, man. Thank you. Thank you for the tips and advice. I started my guy running a little bit, but he's a little young. He's only 12 months and he's a working breed. He's a Gerberian Shepsky or whatever, a German Shepherd, Siberian Husky mix. And he's got a lot of energy. So I am, and then I started running with him and it was okay. But then I dialed it back because I now have a trainer involved. So we're actually training. We're going to take a step back before we take a step forward. So doing certain training with him, and then we'll get him on doing different leash and different commands and recall right now. So after this, we're then going to move on to the running. So I'm excited for
Fantastic.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tony. Tony, let's transition to our final question. And then we'll get people some form of contacting you. So you answered this question, I guess it was in 2021, and I don't remember the answer, and you don't remember the answer. So that's a good thing. Um, Now let's hit it. So imagine you had great grandchildren and they're running around, they're super happy. This is 100 years from now, Tony, and they want to write a book about you. What would you want them to title this book?
Hmm. We were chatting offline. I don't remember what I said before. I don't think that matters too much because at the core, it's the same values, the same principles. Um, I have learned a ton this year, and I love, I resonate so much with the coaching business, grit to growth. But I gotta say that something that kind of percolated a little bit for me this year was related to relationships and connections. And I think that that's really important. And I want to just continue to nurture those relationships and connect with people on a deeper level. There's so much going on, so much noise on social media, and somehow you got to get past that. You got to actually pick up the phone and call somebody or take somebody out to lunch, get to know somebody. So I don't know. A title for a book, I guess maybe uh, how about from grit to growth through connected relationships. I'm making this up on the fly, but
Cool,
those are the
man.
things that are important to me.
That's perfect, man. I love it. And I'm glad you included the grit to growth because that is, that is a very, very important, theme in your life and in my life and in many entrepreneurs' lives. If people are not going to do the standard, live the standard life, and they want something better for their lives, I think grit to growth is extremely important. And it's funny you also added in or sprinkled in the connections and relationships. Just prior to us hopping on this call, I had this thought of doing a quick little Nico's nugget of being impressionable when you meet people, because I realize now, after having many conversations with many people, I tend to forget about people unless they made some sort of impression on me. And that's when somebody builds and creates some sort of impression on you that can last. That's when that relationship can then flourish, and then opportunity arises. And I think that it's important to realize that when we're intentional with our conversations, we can be impressionable on people so that they can eventually, remember us and come back to us and want to work with us potentially. This is coming from the perspective of, working with new partners essentially. And I noticed this because I forgot, like I mentioned, I forgot to call people back or respond to them because they just weren't impressionable enough on me. And that made me introspect and think to myself, am I being impressionable enough on other people to build these lasting connections and relationships with people? So hopefully I am. And hopefully in the future, I can either pivot or adjust that if I'm not.
It's a good reflection, Nico, and I think we probably just need to slow down a little bit, catch our breath once in a while, and look at those that surround us and how they've all shaped some of our viewpoints, our perspectives, the things that inspire us, and also realize that maybe we're inspiring them too. And sometimes, just picking up the phone might make somebody's day.
Oh, cool, man. I love it. Tony, how can people find you to either do a deal with you, learn more about you, or get your coaching?
So we'll put it in the show notes, but they can always email me at Tony, Tony, at Novo, Novo, multifamilygroup.com. My coaching business is called Grit to Growth. They can always reach me through my website, which is grit, GRIT hyphen to hyphen growth. And it's a mouthful, but we'll put it in the show notes.
No, that's perfect. I think it's easy to remember, man. I like it. Cool, Tony. Well, it's been a pleasure catching up with you. I'm excited to learn about what you're working on. I'm excited to find out all that you've accomplished in 2022. We didn't really get to jump into 2023, but I'm sure it's going to be big, and we're just going to have to do it again, my man.
Sounds good, man. Well, we won't wait a whole year plus. Okay.
Sounds good. All right, Tony. Good luck.
Thanks, Nico. You too.
All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.